Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We've already got a little bit of a conversation going as we were kicking things off. And if you're just joining us, we had posed a question as folks were coming in to share what comes to mind when you think of the needs of adult learners. And because we know that there are some distinctions and differences that we have to acknowledge and work into our process. And that's a lot of what we are going to talk about this morning in this session. So thank you all for joining, and please feel free, as Mary mentioned, to engage in the chat, drop some questions in, and we're happy to take questions at the end of the session. But my name is Joe Yankus. I am one of the instructional designers with Instructional Technology and Design Services at Montclair State University. Prior to that, I was with Rutgers University at Division of Continuing Studies for almost 5 years, about 4.5 years or so. But I stay tied to my Rutgers roots by teaching public speaking with the School of Communication and Information. And before all that, I came from Seton Hall University, where I obtained my bachelor's and my master's in instructional design. And I'm joined by my colleague, Patrick.
So my name is Patrick Scioscia, lead instructional designer at Montclair State University. I've worked here for 15 years now. I was an undergrad at Montclair State as well, and I did my graduate education at Teachers College, Columbia University.
And just some background information before we get started to set the stage about who we are and where we come from with the Instructional Technology Design Services Group. So we're an instructional design unit housed within the IT division at Montclair State, and we have a few different arms for instructional design, instructional technology, which Patrick straddles both of, and multimedia as well. We have a studio space that faculty use to record as well. So we're a pretty well-versed group of about 20-ish, Pat, like 20 or so folks. And our work in instructional design revolves around the entire university, but specifically also within the fully online degree program. So a lot of the instructional design processes we have in place were inspired by that work that we're doing for the online degree programs with the Feliciano School of Business and the Liberal Studies and elsewhere among the university. But we work with all faculty, regardless of online degree program status or not. And just to give you an idea of our session this morning and what we're going to cover. So Patrick's going to take us through continuing education at Montclair State, the vision and the platform. Spoiler alert, it's relatively new. There's a lot still unfolding and happening under new leadership, and Patrick's going to talk about that. And then I'm going to cover our course design process, what that process looks like, and some steps to facilitate a successful partnership. And then also some of the ideas and applications that we put into the design of our Canvas course template for continuing education programs. And then Patrick's going to close us out with what's next, some of which, as I mentioned, is still unfolding. But there are some things that are on the horizon that we can discuss. So I'm going to turn it to Pat to take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So I'm going to discuss the vision and platform for our continuing education endeavors. So we have new leadership at the university, a new president and a new provost, and with that comes exciting new ideas. So we have a new initiative called Montclair Unbound. This is still developing. There will be an office for this to facilitate this mission. But ultimately, Montclair Unbound looks to create flexible online hybrid programming for students to enhance their learning. It's not just a platform, as our president mentioned, it's truly a mindset. So we're trying to, even though this is still developing, we're trying to approach continuing education with this ethos in mind, which in fairness, we're already doing EdTech, we're already doing online learning. So it was an easy shift for us. Regardless, this is something that we keep in mind as we're developing these programs. So when we first set out with Canvas Catalog, our vision was to create online self-paced courses that students could swoop in, take on their own time, and leave with a certificate or a badge of some sort. We're still working on that. So in practice, we do have some self-paced courses at the moment. Although something we didn't envision is how many cohort-driven courses we'd have and how we would be able to leverage our pre-existing ties with communities and community-driven programs to work with subject matter experts and enhance their course delivery models. So our audience, of course, is students, But the SMEs that we're working with have primarily been community organizations, business owners, fellow educators, entrepreneurs, our HR department, and cooperating teachers in the field. So our scope has broadened quite a bit. We started with the Ignite Entrepreneurs program, which has launched several cohorts at this point. So that's one of our primarily community-driven programs. Our first self-paced course that we were able to put out was the Alternate Route Teacher Certification Program. So that's a 50-hour course that prospective teachers need to take before entering our Alternate Route program. We're also working with the K-12 Computer Science Education Program, another self-paced course, and another community-driven course in early childhood development. Again, attacking those communities that we are, or fostering those communities that we already built. A few other courses we have are the real estate licensing course. We're also working with our HR department on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's an internal course for Montclair State folks. We've put our own empowering online teaching and learning course on here as well. That's our certificate granting course. I think we've issued about 1,000 certificates before moving the program to Canvas Catalog, where it's more of a self-service model. And then we have another community-driven course on equity-oriented literacy for collaborating teachers in the field. So we selected Canvas Catalog because primarily it's a layer on top of Canvas, something that we're already used to. And for this project, we actually elected to get another instance of Canvas. So we have our regular academic-oriented Canvas for our traditional learners. And then we have a separate instance that folks can navigate to that's connected to Catalog. So Catalog allows students to browse, pay, and enroll for courses all on their own with very little interference from us. When you have a self-paced course, folks could drive on by without you even knowing they did so until you look at the analytics. But again, we also have those cohort-driven courses that have been quite successful. So there are public listed courses. There's also courses that you could hide from the public in case you need to reach a smaller audience. Students would pay through the system, and then Catalog would automatically enroll the student into, they would be able to complete the course and receive a certificate afterwards. Okay, so this is really the stack and flow of Catalog. So this is our public-facing Catalog. We have more courses than this, but a student would be able to come here, find a predictably self-paced course. Maybe they would be given a private link if it was a cohort-driven course. They'd be able to click on these course cards where they would see a course description to learn a little bit about the course. And if they decide they want to take this course, they could enroll. So they would hand payment and enrollment right from here. We have our instance configured that you already have an account if you're a member of Montclair State. And if you don't have an account in our Catalog Canvas instance, this sets it up for you. So this does transform the Canvas dashboard somewhat. You would see this menu as an option. We could see your in progress and completed courses. And you would be able to click go to course to navigate to Canvas. Additionally, there's a PDF transcript button that allows you to export your progress. So you could essentially create a transcript of your completed courses. So Joe's going to go over a lot of what happens in the middle when you're designing the course and then when your students are taking the course. But this system does offer certificates upon completion. These are customizable via CSS. This is only one option that's available. If you have a separate badging system, that's another layer that you could add on top. But by default, Catalog does offer these flat PDF certificates.
And back to me, I think. So Patrick covered a lot related to the technology behind all of this and some of the initiative and the scope so far of what we're doing. And Canvas Catalog has been I know Continuing Studies at Rutgers uses Anchor. Canvas Catalog is another product similar to that, as Patrick mentioned, just allows for the payment and the gateway through to Canvas, which has been really helpful for us, though we are hoping to get more self-paced courses into the platform. Right now, as Pat mentioned, it's been a lot of cohort models and ones that are not necessarily meant to be publicly listed in the catalog, but nevertheless, the platform has been really useful for us so far. But in this next part, I want to chat a little bit about our course design process, what it looks like, and some of the steps that we figured out along the way in terms of facilitating a successful partnership with subject matter experts around Montclair or outside of Montclair, whomever we may be working with. Now, if you've ever worked with an instructional designer before, or if you are an instructional designer, this might look a little familiar. This is just breaking down the relationship between subject matter experts, the ID, and then what the finished product is that we bring to the table. So we know that subject matter experts are coming with their expertise, their field experience, whatever industry experience that they're there to offer. They've been identified as the lead on the content design for these courses. And what's most interesting in the continuing ed sphere is that sometimes we're working with non-faculty, which for the folks, in the ITDS group at Montclair is somewhat new in the sense that most of the online program courses are designed with faculty members who are rooted deep in academia, but having to collaborate with outside folks or just subject matter experts who have been hired to design content is a little different in terms of how that relationship comes together. But nevertheless, they are bringing industry expertise and the content knowledge to the design of the course. Us as instructional designers, we're bringing the expertise on the platform, on the technology that's being used to facilitate everything. And then, of course, some of the pedagogical stuff. What makes sense in an online course? How do we get our learners to the end goal and the course learning goals or objectives? And then what comes together is a finished product that hopefully leverages Canvas, instructional technologies, and other tools where applicable to create a memorable and meaningful online learning experience for everyone. And so these are some steps, as I mentioned, that I've sort of conjured up along the way of how to make this partnership work well. One of those steps, of course, is to keep the design process transparent and simple. You may look at this screenshot of this Google Sheet and think, well, that doesn't look simple at all. There's a lot happening there. But in keeping this simple, what we do at the start of the design process is try to separate the technology from the pedagogy and the content design. So we originally, from the start, work within a document that looks something like this. And this is our course design toolkit, where we walk faculty through the process of sort of ideating on what will be covered in each learning module. What are the objectives of those modules? What content will need to be designed or recorded or created, and how are we facilitating interaction or assessment and activities within that. And I'm going to cover this a little later, talking about this model that we've adopted at Montclair State for the fully online degree programs and have been bringing into the continuing ed sphere as has been necessary within the process. But overall, keeping the process simple, as I mentioned, for folks especially who are not in higher ed necessarily, they're subject matter experts coming in to bring their knowledge, but we have to provide that structure. And this structure works really nicely with getting the ideas and expertise out of their minds and onto a piece of paper in some sort of organized fashion. I alluded to backward design a few minutes ago, but focusing on the end goal via backward course design and working your way from there. So keeping in mind what is the intended end of the learning process and what are our final goals that students or learners should be leaving with, and then how do we get them there? And again, anyone who's an ID in the room or has worked with one has likely encountered or worked with or preached about backward design and just getting people from to the goal and thinking backwards from that process. We want them to be here. How do we get them there? So we often use this as a way to kind of simplify and get folks into our train of thought with how to design courses. Dream big, but stay grounded. I didn't look in the people list to see if my former colleague Karen Harris is here or not, but if she is, this was something that actually came out of inspiration from working with her very often, was that we had a very good partnership with Karen. Was always the big dreamer, right? So she would come with these great ideas for activities and assessments or anything. And I was always more of the one who would, she would be shooting us up this way and I would bring us down this way, in terms of my mind always worked very logistically and, pragmatically, like just trying to work through all of that. And so dream big, but stay grounded in terms of logistics and being mindful of grading the work that you're putting on any facilitators for a cohort driven course. You may dream big and have a lot of ideas for 12 different assignments, but who's the one who's going to be working hourly to grade those assessments? So dreaming big, but working through kind of the logistical questions as well, I think is something that's been striking. That balance is always interesting and unique to each project in terms of that relationship. Including accessibility in the conversation from the beginning. So often, we wind up in situations where we're retrofitting accessibility into courses after the fact. So they were designed and then you get an accommodation letter or something comes through where you're now scrambling to make sure your videos are accurately captioned, or that there's alt text on your images and descriptive text being used. So we bake accessibility into our course design process from the beginning through the use of Anthology Ally, which was formerly known as Blackboard Ally, which is an instructional technology that helps assess the course and the content that's going into it and make sure that everything in it is accessible. What's really nice about Ally, and I know Rutgers has it as well, is that it's very present in the course. So if you upload an image and it's missing alt text, there's a little red meter that shows up to kind of alert you to that. So its presence makes us more forward thinking in accessibility, but making sure that we are making our content accessible and available to any learners and all learners. I always say this: fit the activity to the tool, not the tool to the activity. There's a lot happening in instructional tech and ed tech with so many different tools available and things that we're excited about. And we see maybe a demo of, maybe you'll see a demo of a tool today and think, I really want to incorporate that into my teaching. I always like to say, as I mentioned, fit the activity to the tool, not the tool to the activity, so that you have an idea in your mind of what you want to do and you're trying to find the right technology to execute that vision. You're not just saying, wow, Flip looks really cool, I have to use it, I have to find a way to use that, or I really liked VoiceThread, I want to make sure I weave that into my course somehow. Get excited about the technology, but within the scope of what you're trying to do and finding the right tool to accommodate that. And that's something that I always like to preach throughout my course design projects. So what I want to take us through next is some of the template design that we've worked on specifically for continuing ed. Again, it's revised sort of based on an existing structure that was in place for our online degree programs, but we've revised it a bit with the continuing education learner in mind. And I alluded to this earlier, this OCIA model, OCIA. This is a structure that we use in module design for as I mentioned, for the online degree programs, but it's expanded in its use, and it's something that we speak about often, organizing modules through this order. So orientation, starting with the introduction page, essentially laying out what the learning module, what we're accomplishing, an introduction, whether it's an introductory video or just a list of learning objectives, and setting the stage for what's to come. C, for content, is where we incorporate all of the content for that particular learning module. Again, whether it's multimedia content, whether it's links to literature or websites, readings, whatever it may be, all live within that content space of the course. I, for interaction, where we're looking for opportunities, whether synchronously or asynchronously, to facilitate interaction within courses. And especially in self-paced courses, I think it's nice to include these opportunities to remind folks that there is a space here where other people are learning, which I think is inherently a little more disconnected in the asynchronous online learning space in a self-paced model. So we try to always make sure we're including opportunities for folks to drop an idea somewhere or just get involved and leverage the network of learners that are existing, whether they see it or not in the asynchronous environment. And then assessment, so activity or assessment, something where they're given an opportunity to demonstrate that they've achieved the objectives that we've asked them to master in that particular learning module. So online courses at Montclair State, again, often follow this OCIA model. And when we're working on the course design side of it, it's really nice because it pushes our subject matter experts to make sure they're hitting these 4 areas within their module design for each week. And this is just a quick little screenshot of what this looks like within our template to give you a visual inside of Canvas of what that OCIA model looks like, just usually with something laid out like this. And so a lot of the work that we do, a lot of the design work specifically in making these courses easy to navigate and just visually appealing to the eye comes as a result of CityLab's Design Plus, which I know Rutgers uses as well in courses. So what that does is it takes Canvas course design, in my opinion, to the next level. The native ability to design and edit within Canvas itself is a little limited, and CityLabs gives us so much more flexibility and so much more functionality in making these courses easy to navigate. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea of what this looks like and walk you through some screenshots of one of our courses that is actually live in Canvas catalog right now. So what you're looking at here is a Canvas course homepage. And on the left, we have a very simplified course navigation bar. Some of the comments that came in as we were opening this session related to the needs of a continuing education learner is that they are coming back to school, maybe after an extended time off, maybe when they were in school prior, there was no such thing as Canvas. There was no learning management system. They were just taking face-to-face courses, and this is all brand new to them. So our goal is to make these courses as simple as possible. And if you've used Canvas before, you know that by default, the course navigation bar might look like this. And so we work to simplify that and keep just the bare bones essentials. And visible support avenues. So just right on the homepage, making sure they have the ability to access support and help that they need, whether that's through the program, something related to the content that they're engaging in the course, and also technical support as well. Again, making sure that anyone who needs help with Canvas has the means to access that support. So you may have noticed that in the course navigation bar that the modules page was missing, and that's pretty standard in all Canvas courses. But what we've been doing is actually baking the learning modules into the course homepage, which for us, again, makes it very simple. They come in, they land on a one-stop shop to get to all of the content that they need for their course. So again, in relative to these screenshots, this was the top of the homepage, and then scrolling down, you would hit these learning modules. And I want to highlight just a few things that live within these learning modules here. So again, they're embedded on the page. So as we update them, they're updating live onto the page as well. So that makes our work simple in terms of course design. It makes the learning, again, easily accessible to the learner, not having to navigate to the modules page. Time completion estimates. So this is something that we usually work with our subject matter experts on in trying to estimate how long each learning module will take. Continuing ed learners, and I guess all students these days, are very busy people. And so we want to make sure that if this is a self-paced course and they're coming into module 1 and they know what they're getting into in terms of if they want to, from start to finish, engage with the learning material for that module, 2.5 hours, just to give them an estimate of what they're getting into and how long they need to get through it. And then we also, especially for our self-paced courses, will usually utilize requirements and prerequisites within Canvas, which, if you're familiar with those, allow us to kind of lock down per module and make sure that, depending on the course, some courses, it may make sense to just jump around to what you're interested in or to take the course in any particular order. But for this particular course, it was important to them that they navigate it through module 1 prior to getting access to modules 2 through 6, I believe it was. And so because of that importance, we were able to utilize the prerequisites and the requirements to make sure that we kind of controlled the way in which they had access to the content. So we utilize that, again, especially in the self-paced courses. So looking at a content page, this is just the top of a content page within one of our courses. This is coming from City Labs. We're able to implement this navigation bar directly within the content page itself, which allows learners to jump between the pages without having to bounce back to the previous page or not having to use the next or previous buttons at the bottom. And you'll also notice when the use of requirements is in place for a module, that little circle on the second navigation item there would actually show the completion status of that page as well. So it would help them kind of track their progress as they go along. And here at the bottom of the page, we just give them a space to bounce back to the home page, which, as I mentioned, is where all of the content is living. So it's important that they have easy access back to that space. And then I also mentioned that we're often utilizing the completion tracking and giving them an opportunity to mark pages as done and being able to track that they've completed that. And this is also what's being used to unlock the next module as well. So Patrick, what's next?
All right, thanks, Joe. Yeah, so what are our next steps for this? So first, we want to expand our footprint. Jump to the second bullet. So we want to find new stakeholders on campus to add to our catalog. Predictably, when our office of Montclair Unbound is established, which searches are underway for that, they would be our collaborators on this and help us to expand. So we're actually keeping this a little quiet right now. And the expansion we've seen to this date has been mostly natural, just folks seeking us out. We also want to identify and acquire a new badging solution. So this would allow us to become granular with what's the word I'm looking for? Credentials that we're offering. So right now, Catalog allows students to complete the class and receive a certificate. With certain badging solutions that we've been looking at, students can instead complete assignments or a module to qualify for a micro-credential that they could then add to their LinkedIn page, or they could share their public backpack or profile pages for that particular tool. Catalog will eventually have some advancements that would allow you to show which badges are offered on a course-by-course basis, but that's not implemented just yet in the product. And finally, we want to look at creating some other type of content, SCORM content, through Articulate Storyline or H5P. So we could create more robust simulations and immersive exercise, particularly for those self-paced courses.
And I guess we're a little early on time, but I do want to open it up to questions if anyone has any. I see a few have come in. Let's see. How do you utilize a proctoring online exam, for instance, real estate salesperson licensing course? Patrick's very immersed in our proctoring solutions. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, Pat.
How do you utilize? Sorry, I was reading the other question. So right now we are a lockdown browser shop. We are looking at other more robust applications. It's kind of been a moving target for us. So we're not exactly where we want to be with that. Lockdown browser is excellent for classroom proctored environments. You could do a little bit more with Respondus Monitor. But like I said, it's a moving target. We want to look at other solutions. Joe, I don't mean to flip this back at you, but do you know what Zaman did for the real estate salesperson licensing course?
I believe it was Respondus, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And then to the second question, SCORM content is, so anytime if you've ever taken like an HR training of some sort, or one where there's usually a table of contents on your left, and then you watch a slide of some sort or a video or engage in some sort of interactive element, you press next and you proceed to the next stage. More of that like corporate style of instructional design and content development are usually designed in tools like Articulate, Storyline, and Adobe Captivate. And so again, as Patrick mentioned, it's something that we're looking to get into. We have a project potentially coming up that might involve that. And so Canvas Catalog is a great space to add that content to, especially because that is the epitome of self-paced, really are those SCORM module or SCORM content creations from Storyline or Captivate. And so we're hoping if we can get into that space as well, that we can assist faculty with developing those and getting those loaded into Canvas Catalog. And then to Tim's point, we've phased out of using Storyline for interactive content, have moved to using H5P. So H5P, Patrick can probably speak more to than I can, but we were involved in a pilot or a demo that we had at one point, right, for H5P?
Yeah, so Articulate Storyline is very robust. So you have a very high ceiling with it, but also a very low floor because you need to invest a lot of time into using it. It's an intuitive tool, but it's just a time sink, for lack of a better word. H5P was a little more agile, and not only did it come with tools somewhat comparable to Storyline, it has 50 plus tools of varying complexities that plug into Canvas. And with some of their tools, you could do some legitimate assessments. Some items are just basic check for understandings that are more student to content instruction, where you might just have something on your page like a matching game or just a little check for understanding. And students would do that on their own time and not necessarily submit something to you.
Let's see, what else? Do you know if Canvas Catalog can be linked to already existing payment systems, or must payments and registrations be managed through their program? So we were able to integrate it into, so we use, correct me if I'm wrong, Workday Finance, right?
There's something in the middle there that I can't remember the name of.
Backtracking our slides a bit to that part of the process, but to simplify it, we were able to work with our finance folks to have it in such a way, set up in such a way that on the payment page, people put in their credit card information, and then that information goes through Montclair's existing systems. And what we're able to do is shave off a piece off the top for our external learners, because we do get hit with a licensing fee from Canvas Catalog and per external learner. So not folks associated with Montclair who have net IDs, but if you were to register for one of these courses, let's say with a Rutgers email address, then Montclair State is charged a certain fee per head for that registration. And so we're able to shave off a percentage off the top and then direct those funds to the main IT, to us. And then the rest of it goes to the, whomever we're working with in that group. Did I miss anything, Pat? Did that answer that question correctly?
I think so.
There's a few other questions here. Let me scroll up. Let's see. How do you apply prerequisites for self-paced courses if you are hiding the modules tab in the Canvas course navigation? So again, if I back up, where was that slide? One second. Getting there. So through HTML, when we bake these in, you notice that that you can see the prerequisites and the requirements here. So it's pulling in essentially identically to what's happening on the modules page. Honestly, it was one of our colleagues who did this for us, and it was really helpful in getting this. But it's achieved through HTML essentially. And again, it's pulling in prereqs. You see that the pages are are blurred out here or grayed out here because module 1's requirements were not met yet. So everything that you would see and as it would live on the modules page is structured here as well.
So HTML combined with the City Labs Design Plus. Mm-hmm. So Design Plus does have the user interface to add modules to pages, but it's usually if you like add it to like a module 1 page, it really only has the ability to show you what else is in module 1. There was no button in Design Plus to add a different module list to a page in another module. So that's where it gets a little tricky. We'd be glad to share the workaround if you have Design Plus and you're interested.
What else? What are some examples of simulations and immersive exercises? Would this mean using VR equipment? So more so simulations in the written sense, I would say, like a case study sort of a sense of simulation, less so of like a VR. That was sort of where our mind was in terms of the SCORM development.
So Tim mentioned that they used H5P's branching scenario content type to foster engagement, which is where our heads were at too, but we haven't developed anything with the tool. Fortunately, we are getting it for our own use. So hopefully we could develop something like that soon.
And Ruth also asked, can you apply learning paths with Canvas Catalog? So I believe so, right? We haven't had a case yet where we've needed to, but any Canvas Catalog sits on top of existing Canvas. So anything that you can do within standard Canvas, the Canvas Catalog is merely just serving as a registration platform. So you can think of this, it's the same Canvas on the inside that you know, and the Catalog is just sitting on top handling the registration piece. So if you can do it in, or if you have done it within regular Canvas, then you would be able to do it within Catalog. How do you utilize course or program evaluations to get students' feedback about the course? So far, it's been on a per course basis. So for example, for the course that you're looking at here, they were interested in collecting student feedback because this was a pilot program for them launching it in this way. And so we baked in a link to a Qualtrics survey that lived at the end of the course, again, after the prerequisites and the requirements were all satisfied and they were able to take a survey. We don't really have quite yet any sort of standardized way to collect student feedback on these courses the way that we would for standard courses at the university. I assume something like that will come once we have a more established office in place to define those standards and to create those sorts of assessments. But right now it's just living on a course by course basis.
Yeah, for our traditional courses, we use Evaluation Kit from Watermark, and it's integrated in Canvas, but our Office of Institutional Research supports that tool.
Any other questions? Thoughts, comments, reactions? What is your timeline for developing continuing ed courses like? Does it differ from your timeline for traditional courses? That's a great question. And I would say it certainly does. So our online program course content timeline it's a while. I forget the exact, Patrick will know better than me. At least I'd say a semester prior or so. These courses are being designed well in advance. It's because it's normally part of a larger course design plan. And so that's all mapped out very early. And we usually have at least a semester in advance to design online program courses. For this case, for continuing studies, it's been kind of a mixed bag. So far, folks have come to us and said, I need to launch this in like 2 months or something like that. And depending on the state of the course, when we get our hands on it and get involved, it's feasible or sometimes takes longer to get things up and running. So for example, there was a course where they came to us with basically an existing structure already. And it was a matter of more so just kind of redesigning and tweaking that structure into a model that made sense here. And then we've had people come to us with nothing just yet. And so we have to work over a few months to get involved with the content development and all of that. So we've had folks come to us at a different varying levels of preparedness, I'll say, in terms of what's already in place versus what needs to be brand new. But I would say it does differ. But generally it's been shorter so far. I don't think we've had a case just yet where we've designed it 6 months in advance. We haven't been quite that lucky yet.
So I jotted down a few names so I could send instructions on how we do that that module embed. If you want it as well, just feel free to mention that in chat, and I'll follow up with you after the session.
And also, if you have any other follow-up questions or just want to stay in touch, both of our emails are on the screen, or you can find us on LinkedIn. Feel free to add us, connect with us, or send us an email. We're happy to chat. Carol asked, would you again share the name of your payment provider that interfaces with Canvas Catalog? Oh gosh. Do we know, Pat?
I slacked Dan. It's on the tip of my tongue. I just can't.
Yeah, we had some support internally with that. We didn't lead that integration. So I know we use Workday here more generally, but I forget. I think there's a middle something that happens there before it gets to Workday. All right. Any last thoughts or questions before we wrap up? If not, thank you again so much for joining us this morning. It was great meeting and chatting with all of you and seeing some familiar names as well. So thank you again, everyone.